All right. We are ready to begin the Economic Development, Economic Development Committee meeting tonight. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the June 27th, 2024 minutes. And if there's a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion passes. Approval of minutes. Next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan update, Healthy Des Moines element.
Okay, Laura Chico, I'm the Planning and Development Services Manager for the city, and this is kind of the next chapter of the comprehensive plan update that we've been working on. We've been coming to this committee and other committees with kind of the current drafts of what we've been working on, kind of checking in on certain policy questions. And so tonight we have chapter 12, which is the Healthy Des Moines element. And this one, this chapter first appeared in the comprehensive plan in 2011, and it was a product. In 2010, we had a grant from King County Public Health and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to create a healthy eating, active living initiative. And so we took a lot, there's a number of work products that came out of that with the intent to increase access to public physical activity and nutritious food. And so as part of that, we updated a number of chapters in the comprehensive plan in 2011 to incorporate goals, policies, and strategies for healthy food access, community gardens, nutrition standards for city programs, safe routes to school, and complete streets. And so this 2024 update, this chapter primarily has been updating the data, health data that was used, some of the new funding information. There's two new sections, and one of them is related to health impacts from SeaTac Airport. So there's some discussion in here that wasn't in there before, talking about noise impacts, particulate impacts to health. And there's a new section on addressing health disparities. So they used census tract data to identify places that may have less access to healthy foods, less access to physical activity. And so we've added in some additional language on those. So there are three policy questions. The first are related to those two new sections that I was talking about including a new section on SeaTac Airport and really beefing up the language related to health disparities. And then the other is, the first time this came before council in 2011, it included a lot of what our consultant put in this one, which is incorporating the health data, incorporating some of the funding sources into the chapter. And the council direction at that point was, we want this whittled down. And so actually, I went back to that version, and it was actually a 2-page text, 1 page of goals and policies. And so when we got this draft from them, which I think is like 11 pages, rather than assuming and pulling that out, said, leave it in there, let's take it before the committee, get an input on, if you want to see this level of detail there, another option is we could do an appendix and keep something similar to what we have here, keep the data, which is really helpful, and put it later in the document so that it's a little easier to read through for the public, but we still have that background information. So those are really kind of the three directions on this. Other than that, this is kind of a lighter update than really some of the other ones we're going to bring forward to you. So.
Very good. Colleagues? Mayor?
So I am in favor of a separate appendix, so I'd be open to hearing from my colleagues. I think that information's tough. Thank you.
I would be favorable to a separate appendix. I'm not sure how my colleagues feel, but it's nice to have the information if somebody wants it, but I really like a shorter, concise read for people that pick this up and kind of want to see what we're about. So that was my opinion on that question.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, I like having data available to those who want it. I kind of agree with the mayor that the way it was set up with a relative, to read through with 2 pages of a back, front and back, and then the policy statements, probably is far more readable to a lot of people. But I think that, putting it in an appendix makes some sense. I do think making it available makes some sense. And the best way to do that may be to accomplish it in an appendix, but I'm not wedded to it if anybody else is really adamant about having it right there available.
No, I think that's the way to go.
Okay.
So I think you have direction on that.
Yeah, I think we could get this down to almost a third of what's in here.
Okay.
And still have that background data, so.
Very good. Awesome. Anything else from my colleagues?
Yeah, on item number 2, and just a general statement in regard to, there were a couple of places in the SeaTac airport. It would be nice to collect more independent study data instead of, I think the wording there says that we want to rely on what the port puts out. And, I mean, no offense, but I think independent, and I think there's another section in there talking about, is it WSU? There's State of Washington Fine Particle Study. So see, I appreciate that. Something coming out of a university versus something that the port hires to provide. So right here, what is it, page 14, I think it is? Item goal HD3, support the efforts of the Port of Seattle to study the impacts of noise and air pollution. And I might, if you're going to keep that in, maybe put support independent studies with regard to impacts of noise and air pollution. Anybody else have an opinion on that?
Deputy Mayor?
No, I agree.
And then,
As well.
thank you. And then on page 12, you talk about safe routes to school, but no mention of what, we've done some really great work with safe routes to school, and I could have missed it. So if maybe we could include what we've done in here, that would be really
I think
good.
that a lot of that's been done since.
Since this was written, right? Yeah, 24th and 200th, and so, yeah, pretty cool. And then there's a recommendation where the sentence isn't completed, so I wasn't sure what it was going to say on page 16. Oh, yes, support the efforts of the Port of Seattle to find cleaner alternatives to traditional, and then it was crossed out. But I'm guessing fuels, right? Or just the word fuels?
Yeah, I'm thinking that the intent was to keep in fuels, maybe be a little more general there, but yeah, I'll confirm that, but yeah.
Okay. That's all I had in this segment.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
No, but
Okay, good. If that's the last part of item number 2, we'll move on to item number 3, middle housing project introduction and briefing.
I'm sorry, I was going to talk about the goals and policies addressing health disparities.
Oh,
with
that's the
policy
third question.
Yeah,
right?
that's the
Is that what
first
yours?
question,
Okay.
and
Third policy question. So there's some starter language in here. I think a lot of that is in the sections where they're citing census data. So they got census tract data, and so there's additional language in here related to that. There's a few placeholders where we could also add some language. So if that's a direction that the committee would like to take, we're going to proceed with that.
I think it's important to make sure that there's good quality food available for all. I mean, we finally got essentially a fresh fruit stand downtown. That's not the same as the grocery store that was here a long time ago, but at least downtown has some access to food, to fresh food that they don't otherwise have. And I think the same is true up on the highway and across the highway, that those are areas that are not well served and need to be better served. So.
Yeah, and so this data, like I said, we'll look at putting that into appendix, and, but that census tract data is really what's driving these sections that talk about increasing access, and it's actually identifying parts of the city that are primed for that, so.
What does it say beyond just simply identifying the parts of the city and a general statement of increasing access? Are there specific
I
recommendations?
think there are still, we're still in kind of a placeholder, it talks about adding implementation strategies to address health and wellness opportunities in unrepresented groups. So that's still, I think, not quite fully fleshed out, but a direction that they were wanting to go. And staff Peyton Murphy was helping me with this as well, and that was a direction that she was recommending to add in that seemed like it was missing specific policies. So.
And I would be interested in seeing what are the specific things that we can address at a city level to help do that.
And I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. Didn't mean to hijack that, but,
Well, that's great.
okay.
And we'll be, as we're proceeding through these drafts, we'll be bringing them back before, not committee, then full council, so you get another bite at this.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, now moving on to item number 3, middle housing project introduction and briefing. And from what I understand, this is gonna be a high level, over the top of items that we're addressing, and we'll dive deeper into it as the year goes on. So here we go, turn it over to staff, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alicia Jacobs, Land Use Planner 1. So like you said, this is the purpose of this briefing today is to provide an introduction to the middle housing work that the Community Development Department and our consultants are currently working on. So the Community Development Department has a contract with our consultants, HBL. Contract tasks include preparing a public engagement plan, preparing maps to establish land capacity for construction of middle housing units in areas that may require additional infrastructure support, preparing memos to identify choices that city decision makers can use to evaluate options for middle housing in Des Moines, preparing draft regulation amendments, and providing assistance related to the adoption of middle housing regulations and comprehensive plan updates. And we have completed the first 3 tasks so far. So just an overview of what middle housing is. In 2023, the Washington State Legislature passed HB 1110, which amended the Growth Management Act. The definition of middle housing is buildings that are compatible in scale, form, and character with single-family houses and contain 2 or more dwelling units. This can include duplexes, townhouses, cottage housing, and others. Depending on proximity to transit, between 2 and 6 housing units per lot would be allowed, provided development standards like yard setbacks and lot coverage are met. And the purpose of middle housing is to create more homes for Washington by increasing middle housing in areas traditionally dedicated to single-family detached housing. So our public engagement plan, in collaboration with AHBL, the Community Development Department will conduct public outreach associated with integrating middle housing into the city's policies and regulatory structure. The city and consultant team will identify groups that should be included in engagement and conduct community outreach. These public engagement methods include website and social media outreach, public open house, stakeholder engagement, and community workshops and roundtables. And our consultants have also created a middle housing website that can be accessed at this link, and it's a way to stay up to date and to see other outreach opportunities in Des Moines. So a June 4th policy memo, they've been putting together, our consultants have been putting together memos for us to review as they continue their research. So the June 4th policy memo discussed middle housing policies, and they provided background information about HB 1110. They highlighted types of middle housing, and they discussed benefits and strategies for implementing HB 1110 in Des Moines. Some of the benefits that they've included were it'll provide additional housing options for low-income earners, attract and retain a diverse population of residents and workers, which includes teachers, police officers, firefighters, and others, and can help the city meet its growth target. Some strategies for implementation are to assess existing comprehensive plan policies and review the city's housing action plan. Another memo that we received from them, it was a mapping memo to see middle housing capacity analysis. And the focus areas of this memo were residential zoning, residential preferred land use, major transportation stops, critical areas, and impervious surface coverage. Their initial conclusions from this mapping memo were that the Marina District, Central Des Moines, and Pack Ridge may be the best candidates to focus middle housing efforts due to their proximity to services, zoning capacity, existing density, and proximity to transit. Des Moines is categorized as a Tier 2 city, and it must abide by the provisions outlined in HB 1110 as it pertains to lot counts and areas within a quarter mile of major transit stops, and unit per lot counts in single-family zones. Critical areas and their buffers must be considered along with the character of existing neighborhoods and based on zoning, land use, transit, concentration of impervious surfaces, and utility capacity. The maps show that there is ample residentially zoned land located outside of critical areas that could support middle housing. And then we have a visual of our public engagement plan timeline. It's approximate and subject to change based on solidifying dates for events. The initial work on the Middle Housing Grant Project will run concurrently with the comprehensive plan update and will inform potential policy updates for the housing element, as well as the land use, transportation, capital facilities, utilities, and public services elements of the comp plan. The city is currently working on a periodic review and update to our comprehensive plan that is due by December 31st. And the review and adoption of the development regulations to implement HB 1110 will occur between January and June 2025. And that is our update.
Colleagues, are there anything?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I do have, go ahead, Harry.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm, and maybe you have to help me with some of the terminology here. When it says lot counts for areas, what is that referring to? It's on the page that is June 11th mapping memo. Bullet point number 2, middle sentence, especially as it pertains to lot counts for certain areas. What is that?
What was that one?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, unit per lot count, so essentially how many units per lot could be accommodated within a certain area.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Des Moines has irregular lots. We don't have nice cookie cutter sort of lots because we were unincorporated for a long time when a lot of these lots were drawn. I mean, my lot is twice the size of my neighbor's, but you can't, to think that you would put the same number of units on those two areas seems crazy, but that's how I understand the bill. So how does that play out?
That would be a maximum, so there'd be a maximum allowed on there. So, but there would also still be lot coverage, setbacks. There are some probably modifications to those we'll have to do as part of the code updates we do, but you'd still need to, figure out what is feasible to fit within your lot. So you could have up to, say, 4, but it may be that, you've designed what you want to put on there and you can only fit 3 or 2.
Mm-hmm. And sort of the other piece that goes with that, the more units you have on that lot, in all likelihood, you're going to have more non-permeable surface. And so you've got a stormwater runoff issue. How is that addressed?
So lot coverage typically for zoning is structures and buildings. Impervious coverage, that's something that surface water will look at. So there are certain thresholds for them that dictate what type of treatment or other things could be, done. So that would be addressed during the development review.
Well, and if I can further on that, is that several years back, I believe it was prior to you being on council, we had to adopt for surface water management the amount of impermeable or permeable surfaces being I forget what it is, permeable concrete and permeable asphalt that is drainable and or permeable surfaces. So you can't place regular concrete anymore. There has to be, it has to be drainable, which there's this concrete out there. So for surface water management, and the way that goes is that would be taken care of during the review process.
So is that gonna effectively be a drag on how many units you can actually get on a lot? That's kind of where my question is.
No, I believe if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, what there are a bunch of 5,000 square foot lots, is you're only able to put a 1,000 square foot footprint on that lot due to setbacks, but at 35 feet you can go up, and so it could be a 2-unit complex that goes up 35 feet. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, you're able to put a 3,500 square foot footprint on that lot that could go up 35 feet, and that would be a 3 or 4 unit dwelling unit. And then you would have to have permeable surfaces that would allow water to drain with the amount of concrete that you're placed on that surface. And then depending on how the roof is tied into the drainage system, then that's where you would be at.
Okay. I mean, but I guess the next question then is, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I really appreciate your knowledge of the area, so please don't. If you're going up in a single family, in an area that's previously been zoned single family, you're no longer in keeping with the, what was the goal? How was that worded up here? In keeping with the neighborhood, essentially, with the characterization of the neighborhood. And I just see a lot of tension in the new regulations. And I think there becomes a real incentive for developers to, buy what's been a single dwelling and put 4 units on it if they can, because they can sell those at a lot, at what would be a reasonable price for the area, maybe. But you're changing the characteristic of the neighborhood a little bit, or at least I think that people in the neighborhoods are going to be concerned about that.
And that's something that's going to be addressed differently depending on where in the city it is. So, currently single-family zones have a 30-foot height maximum, and so potentially that height maximum would be the same. And so what the additional units you can do would stay within that. But some of the zones that are listed in here are already multifamily zones, so you may be able to get additional units. So it would be different depending on where in the city you are. So, but the intent is that it stays compatible with the neighboring ones. And there's some good, they have some good picture clarifications in here of the different types, kind of different intensities of middle housing. I'm trying to remember which. But essentially, there's some that are lower number of units and more consistent with looking like a single-family home. So page 25 of the packet. These are some of the lower intensity middle housing, and then you go up to kind of the large townhouses, large courtyard, and these would be more appropriate for things that are already multifamily zoned properties. And then something within these realms, kind of more cottage housing or duplex style, would be something that would be permitted likely in single family zones. So that's something, as we're going through this and getting input from the public and kind of, you can take these options and customize them for different areas of the city.
Yeah, I think the public's gonna have a little heartburn over
Yeah.
changing the characteristics, and the more that we can do to say, actually, this is gonna create people in the same income level, but into that neighborhood.
And not going far outside of the typical characteristic
Right.
of what that neighborhood looks like.
And then look at the same, that's a necessary piece of this, but I think there are a lot of tensions built into this approach that we have to balance somehow. Thank you.
Well, and I mean, to further add to that, Deputy Mayor, is that, mind you, this is not something the city is doing on their own. This was federally enacted, and we're being forced to create these mandates because of the feds. So we have to comply with this law, and we can do the best as the city we can to mitigate any kind of impacts on our residents, but we do have to comply to this law.
Yeah, I thought it was the state.
Or
State law.
State law. Okay.
Okay.
So essentially, the goal is to customize it as best fits Des Moines. If that's something we're unable to come up with, the state has a model ordinance that will take effect in June 2025 unless we've adopted one that, meets the intent of theirs, but is also, appropriate for our specific community.
Okay. Look forward to it.
Mayor.
How does you've got a schedule there, how does a community member who's very interested in the subject make sure that they get notified of these outreach efforts?
We will be updating the website, and we'll be using, go ahead.
So there will be opportunities to comment throughout the events, throughout the website. Likely there will be a place that they can be added to. And we already have a list of people who've emailed just our standard planning
Okay.
email.
So
Yes,
if,
we have a list of requested stakeholders. So as we're getting into the public outreach stage, we'll do kind of the general website and other noticing, but we will be keeping kind of like we've done with the housing action plan and the comp plan. We're happy to take contact info and do some, directed emails also.
so people will be notified if they, okay. Because sometimes I think what happens is, it goes out in City Currents or it goes out to Facebook to say, go to the website, but if people don't know, then they don't know how to, you can put it out there, but they don't know that it's out there, right? So anyway, thank you for that. Then I had notes, but it sounds like this is coming back. You had a note here on page 35. It's these blue boxes. And so you have these recommendations, and I design standards for middle housing, and then you put here, it'd be good to consider in order to ensure that the middle housing structures are buildings that are compatible in scale, form, and character with single-family houses. And then I put agreed. Even if there are no design standards in place, that first box, I just agreed with you on that. Then the second box, the ask or the recommendation was balance a practical need for vehicular access while prohibiting designs that are dominated by multiple garages, blah, blah. I thought before we just prohibit a bunch of driveways, you've got this balance between how it looks and hard to walk. I agree with that, but I just would want to know more pros and cons either from my colleagues or, community input. Sometimes if you need to comply with HB 1110 and you want to put more, you need to put another driveway or garage space or something so you can have more driveways. I don't know, we need to know more. And then the third box, instead of reading all the text, I just put yes. But I was yes on that blue box, so if anybody wants to know. And then
And these These are kind of recommended areas of discussion that our consultant put forward. So
And they'll be
these are
coming
things-
forward again?
So these are things that are, things that they're bringing up as potential discussion items with the public, with council. So yeah, so definitely.
Okay,
Will be coming up again and will be incorporated into our stakeholder and public
okay.
outreach events.
I wanted to tag on to what Deputy Mayor Steinmetz talked about design standards, because earlier in the document you talk about, or where you had all those comparisons, like what are barriers and what are proposed. Do you know what segment I'm talking about? You have like 3 or 4 pages where you have this chart where you have
Right.
that one right there.
These are specific policies and goals that are out of the comprehensive plan, and so what they've done is they've gone through those and stated, based on our current comprehensive plan, are these supportive of HB
Right.
1110? Are these barriers to? And they've got some recommendations on ways they could be worded or.
Right,
approach.
and so one of those talks about how design standards can be a barrier to, better design standards can be a barrier to increasing housing density. But then lower down in the document, it talks about multiple units on residential lots and how do you really want to put a fourplex on a residential lot? And so I think, master builders, they're really big on getting a lot of denser housing in residential areas by, creative ways. So in that discussion, I would be more open to higher density if we did maintain design standards. So if it looks like it fits into the neighborhood and it works, personally, I would be more open to more density. But if you loosen design standards and want to put more density in, then you end up with this weird looking stuff that just gets dropped in,
Yeah.
so.
And I think one of the main concerns on the state level for design standards was that cities may put in things that, this needs to go to like a planning agency, or this needs to go through certain higher levels of review versus administrative. So their hope was that you could put in design standards, but it needs to be an administrative review, staff review, so that it's not adding additional review time. It's not a barrier to, this is going to take me 3 times as long as if I go through this process. Or so it does give us the flexibility to add those in. They want to make sure that it's not a kind of a hearing type of a review, that it's something that the staff can do directly. But we have something similar. We have a townhouse zone that, for townhouses, there are design standards that talk about what percentage of the facade can be garages and what, so that's something we could certainly look at.
Well, I think how this project on 216th comes out is going to be important for, as we move through this, how that ends up looking could have an effect on how well the community receives denser housing, right? And then, when the master builders, they come to you with all these amazing pictures, you go, I would love that in my neighborhood, right? And then you drive through Kirkland and they want to show you all these lovely things, and then somehow you drive through another city or something and they've tried to implement that and it looks crap. I would love for every, dense area to look like what they did in Kirkland, but I think sometimes people say, well, it's too expensive. I just want it to look nice, put as many units as you want, as long as it looks really nice. I don't think people will mind so much. So, anyway, that's.
And if I can make a comment, in West Seattle, 18, 20 years ago, they were doing the same thing. They were taking single-family lots, tearing them down and putting duplexes on them. And they had design standards because they all pretty much went up looking the same way. So I'd love to see if that was part of a council decision or if that was a design decision or what that was. I believe I can get a better address for you later, but I believe it was off of Del Ridge and I can't remember. There was a Baskin and Robbins and yeah. Anyways.
We'll have to do a field trip, get ice cream.
Yeah, field trip. Baskin and Robbins, Starbucks, and now defunct, what was that market that was there? Anyways,
Metro or Metropolitan Market.
yeah, it was a
something like that.
metropolitan market,
Okay.
yes, right there. But that whole neighborhood was being bought up, and houses were being torn down and duplexes were going up, and they all looked about the same. So,
Yeah, just what, recently, and I want to be careful, I mean, I don't want somebody who owns these houses to feel like I'm dissing them or anything, but there have been some houses just put in that look just like a box dropped out of the sky into a neighborhood. It doesn't match any of the neighborhood homes or no roof lines, no, and I feel like I would hate to approve some zoning code that says we can increase density and put these buildings in neighborhoods and have that happen. I just, houses with no character, no lines, no, just wouldn't want that. So I guess that I want to be very,
And that's a discussion item as we're, looking at additional density, because there are not, design standards aside from setbacks and height for single-family homes. But if you're gonna be doing a duplex or a triplex or, something, more in line with what's proposed here, that's something we can discuss
Okay.
on the
Okay.
potential for some minimum design standards.
just feel very protective about that.
agreed. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just kind of one other comment is that as we get into the design standards discussion, we also have to understand how much it's gonna add to the cost. Because the idea of the bill, and I hope we don't run afoul of that, is to try to keep some more affordable, middle income affordable housing available, for the teachers, teachers, police officers, firefighters, and others. 'Cause we want them in our community. And so we need to be conscious of that, and we need to have a better understanding, I think, of how whatever design standards come out of the discussion, how that's going to affect the cost to build and therefore the cost on the market.
Well, and if I could add to that, by adopting anything that is required by STC standards, that would also add to the cost of the house or dwelling units, making it less affordable. So double 15, 30 seconds on the walls, roof, and extra insulation and 5/8 drywall throughout the entire house as opposed to 1/2 inch drywall, and hat channel on the roof structure, and STC rated windows that are 3 times the cost of regular windows. I mean, so yeah, taking
all
into
costs
account, it all costs money.
We
So,
just gotta get a clear picture of that.
okay,
That's all I'm saying.
thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's good for me. Thank you for asking.
All right. I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there is a motion to adjourn,
So move.
Second.
all right, we are adjourned. Thank you, staff, for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah.